Hi, I'm Jackie.
And I'm Candace.
Welcome to WTF, Women Talk Finance.
Our WTF podcast will take a simplified approach to finance, and we talk about investing, a topic we believe women don't talk enough about.
We'll discuss common financial questions and challenges that women face in business and throughout their personal lives. A quick disclaimer before we start. The opinions that we're going to discuss are just that. They're just our opinions. We are not here to give investment advice. We will be talking about who we are, what we're about, and what information we'll be bringing to you.
We'll be speaking to women from all walks of life whose experience will help us frame some of the issues and challenges that women face today in business. Maybe you're starting your own company and investing in your future.
We're going to talk about knowing your worth in the workplace, how to ask for that raise, and we'll also talk about investing, something we believe that women don't talk about enough. You'll find this is a common theme throughout our podcast to come. How to invest, different kinds of investments, and how to pay yourself first. We're going to give you actionable information that will allow you to understand how to make your future better starting today. Welcome back to another episode of WTF, Women Talk Finance. We are back with Celeste Johnson, the CEO of the Applied Companies. The Applied Companies is the largest locally owned and operated employment firm in Northern Nevada. They specialize in staffing, HR, payroll, benefits, workers' comp, and recruiting for business owners and candidates alike. A quick full disclosure, the Applied Companies does provide HR and payroll services for Row Capital Group. So Celeste, thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you.
You're going to share with us a little bit about the journey from being in the C-suite at the company to owning the business. Yeah. Let's launch right in. Easy path?
No. No.
We're going to dive right into
Pretty sure it took a couple years off.
Yeah.
I guess I sort of grew up in business in HR, which is great. TAC is an HR company. It's a great place to get some more experience. And the founder was a mentor to me and a really great boss. And as he started to approach retirement, I guess I had enough awareness to know I knew a lot about the business, but I needed to, up my game or have some more skill set, especially in the finance side. So without knowing I was going to buy the company, I think there was something emotionally happening where I knew I needed to do something. So I went and got my MBA. Okay. With a husband and 3 kids in junior high at the time.
Fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Doing homework together.
I did more homework than the kids did. So I did that, and it ultimately started to, I think, kind of create this path that, look, I could maybe do this and be an owner and manage. I knew how to run the fulfillment side of the operation and the client facing, but I didn't have that deep knowledge of financial statements or banking or really any of that. And so that was really helpful, actually. It was taking that step. So it did sort of give me the confidence, I think, to go, I can do this. And it also gave me the confidence to ask a lot of questions when the process started, and not feeling like I shouldn't be there. Like, it was okay. I knew I had enough experience.
You were comfortable asking.
I was more comfortable asking. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if I certainly didn't have it all figured out by any means. So it was definitely a process. So I would say we started the purchase in mid 2016, and it was a year and a half to get the purchase done. And so there's kind of 2 sides to this. There's the side where you need to get the financing to purchase a company. And we looked at some different options. We looked at private equity, and we looked at like an SBA loan, which is ultimately where I landed. I can talk about my experience there. That was really interesting. And then there's the emotional side of it too. So there was the founder that was my mentor, but he also had a silent partner that was not involved in the business, but actually had a lot of say in the selling of the company.
Were you aware of that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was navigating, not only trying to figure out the financing, I was navigating my own, I guess, insecurities and trying to figure out how to move this forward, and a retiring person's emotional side of this, and then a partner that had a very different view of how this should all come together.
And you were purchasing both of them out,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. They had ownership in, there were multiple LLCs that got, kind of put together for one purchase. And they had ownership in all of them.
I want to loop back to something you said about questions.
Yeah.
You were asking a lot of questions and touching on maybe the MBA helped you have a comfort level ask those questions. But I think that's something that alone can be scary, because if you're asking a question, what's the fear? That it's a dumb question, or that you're going to be judged. Like, are you kidding me? You should know that. So you're navigating your own emotional fears on the financing, on whether this is the right decision, and even asking questions.
Those business insecurities. Yeah.
And so the dynamic as well is, that came into play is female, 20 to 25 years younger than the sellers. So these are two gentlemen that were in Reno business environment for 40 years, know everybody in town.
Just 4 decades.
Right. So
Which is how
there's
the culture
there's a
in our
power
town.
shift dynamic there, right? Yeah, the culture. Yeah. We could probably have a podcast
There's a
on
whole
just
podcast
that.
on just old town, politics.
The particular industry I'm in is interesting too. So PEO, Professional Employer Organization, is a big piece of the purchase. And that industry is a very male-dominated industry. And it's specific. So there is private equity in that particular industry, a lot of it, that will buy PEOs. And the sellers were entertaining conversations with private equity. Also, in my experience with that particular industry, very male-dominated. Many of them had never actually worked in a PEO. They knew the industry, and they saw that it had a good multiplier and great opportunity, and they loved that the person that was running the company was going to stay. And that was a huge lesson. So again, everything you just said is navigating all these different emotions and feelings. And I knew meeting with them without ever having to report to private equity and meet certain criteria, that was going to be a tough road.
Did you have a moment where it turned into it turned from, this is an idea, I want to do it, to I'm doing this. I want to do this, and this is mine. I mean, was there, loaded question, I mean, what did you have to risk to make this happen? Because it sounds like it was a fight. So I suspect that you were at some point.
I mean, it sounds like you were like, David and Goliath here. Like, you're like, me. And then there's this huge PE, option on the other side that's kind of an easy choice for them to make.
You guys know how private equity works, right?
Familiar with how private equity works.
So there's a process to it, right? So there's usually a pretty good amount of money up front, and then due diligence starts, and that amount may change. So I was gaining the awareness and the education. I was leaning on resources. There is a woman that's in the PEO space that does M&A that I had become friends with. What a valuable resource, because not only did she have the experience, she would pull me aside and go, Celeste, let's go have a glass of wine. We're going to talk about how this really works. And and I know there's all different situations. How do you want to see this, go down? So something you said, was there a moment? Yes.
Did you want this to go down? I mean, was there a turning point where you were like,
So I think where the turning point happened is when we got sort of the nod that we could do it on our own and go through an SBA loan. Then that's when I kind of went, okay. And then I think there's a competitive spirit in me that just kind of locked on and went, okay, we're going to make this happen. I mean, and to be very frank, I mean, it was not, we have 2 homes. We've put them on the line as collateral. So now, it's not just me anymore. It's my husband, it's the kid, we're tied. We are married. I do have a partner though that was very, very supportive, and did a really big amount of lifting in the due diligence we had to do with the bank and helped their important piece. I mean,
business partner or like relationship partner?
Husband. Okay. Yeah. And then I kind of felt like I was able to assemble the dream team a little bit. So it brought in 2 minority owners. One is our employment law attorney, him. And the other is our internal COO, excuse me. She was our really important piece in the organization. I was like, well, that's a good way to keep her, is have her be an owner. But that whole, I had never bought a company before. So going through the SBA loan process, it was incredible. And thank God I had gone through grad school, because I didn't know it all, but at least I could recognize some of the different ways that they approach looking at metrics in the organization. Like I could draw on some of that.
Interested in investing in cryptocurrency? It's a simple way to diversify your portfolio. But what about the impact that cryptocurrency mining has on the environment? We have a solution. It's called Cryptowell. Cryptowell uses eco-friendly technological infrastructure to generate power for cryptocurrency mining. Accredited investors go to rowcapitalgroup.com to power your portfolio with sustainable crypto mining. Every day you hear about people making money by investing in IPOs and startups. But what about you? These kinds of investments are simply not available to Main Street investors. At Row Capital Group, we are committed to providing access to strategic, early-stage, primarily low-market correlated investment opportunities. Accredited investors go to rowcapitalgroup.com for more information. Row Capital Group, empowering your financial journey.
I think this is an important discussion. One, I think people think that being a business owner is just all glamour, tons of money. You're swimming in cash, baby. Hot tubs full of dollars. No. And it is like, I don't think your employees, I don't think a lot of people recognize how hard it is. Right. How much you're putting on the line every single day. Right. You're the last to get paid. Right. You're doing
everything else is going to get paid before I take a distribution.
Right. Yep. Everything else is first. Yep. You have to have the world's most supportive spouse and partner. Right. Your kids, are oftentimes are paying sometimes a price. It's so rewarding, but it is so much work. And I'm really glad you touched on that, because I think people see on a business card CEO and they're just like, oh, how fancy. How good for you. Must be nice. And it is like, you don't know how hard I clawed and scraped and got, the gross things I've had to do to get to this place.
Stressed and didn't sleep. Yes. And didn't sleep. You just don't. And because it runs in your head 24/7.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of people have gotten a loan. A lot of people have gotten a home loan, right? A mortgage. Sure. I don't think anybody can understand the magnitude of getting a business
loan. Right.
That is such a process.
Yep. They are going to ask to see the last at least 3 years of financials, and they are going to pick them apart for 6 months, at least. And it's not going to be one person. It's going to be a team of people that do this for a living, that know how to look at every dollar. And I don't. I've never done that before.
And there's things you can't control because it's about the business.
Right. And it's a look back too. Right. I didn't spend whatever that amount was. The sellers did. Right. And it doesn't mean I'm going to do that again.
Exactly. But you're being held accountable.
But I have to justify
for a little bit of what has happened. Yep. Talk about what your family and those around you, your friends, your peer group, how did people respond during this time? That's 1.5 years of your life of going through this process. What was that like?
Did you have people that were like, this is not worth it?
I really didn't. I can't think of anybody that was like, so here's, I think, an important thing that Travis, that's my husband, and I figured out with some help of, are you familiar with Vistage International? They're a peer, COO, CEO group where you process issues together, but none of you compete. So you get very close. And I think we established what our enough is. So we kind of knew where there's that scope creep, right? Where you just kind of keep going for the sake of going. But I think we kind of had set a boundary there.
You understood where you would draw the line.
Yeah. Right. So I think that's important because it could be really easy to let everything run away from you. Yes. What I got from Vistage, which was so key, is I started out with this, well, the sellers have the say and the buyer has to either accept it or not. Mm-hmm. And it took me a while to realize I had the leverage. And I had the leverage because the sellers needed out. They wanted to retire. Right. It's a service business. They needed somebody that had institutional knowledge or they weren't going to get their price. I didn't know that on the surface. That was the
sellers aren't going to tell you that.
No, hell no. Oh, and especially the one that was the CPA that very much understood.
That's really valuable.
And probably, played that role a little bit of, she's not going to figure that out. I'm just going to come in with the moxie that this is our prize. But it was through Vistage and processing with other owners that a couple things I could have done. Not that I would have, but this is where the leverage was. I could leave and start another company. I had the knowledge and I have the time. At the time I was 45, I have time still. They didn't. Their clock is ticking. Yeah. Or if I didn't stay, if it wasn't a good deal for me, then there is no price because most situations sellers have a carry, right? They don't get their full payday on the day of close. So something has to continue to that business to be successful, whether it's through the bank or private equity, there's going to be a carry. Mm-hmm. Once I started to figure that out, and not only just figured out, but believe it, then it started to move the ball a little.
And I'm sure they probably saw you were the most valuable buyer. Yeah. From the standpoint of a successful ongoing operation. Right. Because there could be other buyers out there, who knows? Right. Maybe others that would have paid their price, but not had the seat that you had because you were in the company running it.
Exactly.
And essentially guaranteeing their ongoing success.
Their carry. Yeah, and I did a stock purchase too, where an outside buyer is only going to buy the assets. Yep. They're not going to buy any liability. I bought all the liability. Because I knew the company, so
you'd been there for so long.
That's a pretty sweet deal for sellers to have the liability go with it, especially given what we do. We have, HR issues have tails, right?
They can go on for quite some time.
And things can bubble up 3 years down the road, and the sellers aren't going to want a piece of that anymore. No, so it's figuring out some of those things. Now I know there's all different industries out there, but every industry has its thing, right? So. I guess it's a matter of figuring out what is that's my leverage. And not
your value.
Yes, maybe that's a better word, is understanding value, because leverage sort of gives this negative, like it's a battle, and it doesn't need to be a battle. Right. I like that, yeah.
I love that. And you found this great mentor group or group.
Vistage,
yes. Yeah. That
I love
to me
Vistage.
Sounds key. I've gone through a purchase and a sale of a business, and it can be a very isolating process.
Right.
And it can blow up in a moment's notice, and you are like picking yourself up.
Yeah. Because you don't know what you don't know, right?
No clue.
It sounds like this process could wear you
It ages
down.
you.
Oh, it sure did. It sure did. I don't want to do anything for a while. Someday, though, I'd like to be on the other side of it and do an acquisition.
What would you tell others who wanted to do a similar path or do something like you did? So maybe working for a company with a purchase opportunity. What would you tell others who are considering this type of move?
Yeah, I would say use your resources, look at your network. Maybe it's friends, maybe it is other business colleagues. Gosh, that was so invaluable to me. And here's another thing I would have done too. I was a little passive with whether it was private equity firms coming this way or an SBA. I didn't go out and have them compete. I wouldn't do that again. I would say, okay, there's 2 maybe private equity, let's line up 5 and have them talk about, their approach and how do they emotionally handle a purchase. Because there's a lot more to it than just a number, right? Same with the banks too. Why didn't I have banks compete?
There's going to be moments of kind of tough patch, you gotta
That's
power
a good
through.
point too. And probably another podcast, right? Is like, when do you walk away?
Right.
When do you know when, okay, there's too many, because it's easy to make excuses for red flags.
It goes back to that point, you knew your line from the beginning, and you had a supportive partner who was like, together, we know our line.
Yeah. I mean, I think we stayed close to the line. We probably paid a little bit too much at the end of the day, but we were close. We were on the line.
But if you didn't have the line, it could have gotten, and that was,
you
don't know.
You don't even know what you're giving away, potentially.
Well, thank you for sharing with us what this experience was like for you and this process. I think there's a lot of little nuggets in there and more we could definitely talk on. Wishing the Applied companies a lot of success in the years to come.
Yeah, so far so good. And thank you guys for being a client.
Thanks for being here with us too on the podcast. This is another episode of WTF, Women Talk Finance. Like and subscribe and come back for more. Thanks for listening to Women Talk Finance.